nearing the end of the regular season of the NECBL, and we are back with another Navs Nation podcast. I'm Nick Pernick. I'm back this week. I couldn't believe I wasn't there last week, but Gus and Ryan provided all the content we needed, so thank you, Gus, for that. Glad to be back today, and glad to be bringing you the Navs Nation podcast, episode 11. I can't believe it's episode 11, and as always, it's brought to us by our sponsor at Remax 360 Real Estate Office. Whether you're buying or selling a home or just curious about the local market, Remax agents are dedicated to making your real estate experience memorable and enjoyable. So make sure to contact Remax 360 today by calling 781-593-7611. That's Remax 360, and it's conveniently located on 85 Exchange Street in Suite 302 in Lynn. So, Gus, come on back in now. Gus Balo, my co-host. We got a great interview today with assistant coach Dan Hirsch. He comes to us through Burlington High School. He's the head coach over there. Just a great interview with him today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great interview, and we had a pleasure talking with Dan, so it should be a great interview coming up later in the Navs Nation podcast. But for now, let's recap the last week. A lot has happened since we last recorded, and obviously it was nice. It's nice for you to be back on the podcast, Nick, after not being on last week. But after splitting a doubleheader with North Adams last Tuesday, the Navigators won back-to-back home games Thursday and Friday, and that started the 12-game and 11-day stretch for the Navs as they are in the home stretch of the season. Jake Gustin and Logan Bravo had back-to-back walk-off home runs on the game Thursday night to give the Navigators a 5-4 win over the Vermont Mountaineers, and that's going to be potentially a big win at the time. Navs also beat the Muskrats 4-1 as well on Friday last week, as Chris Shine pitched 6 innings of 1 earned run ball, so he had a great game last Friday.
Yeah, and the Navs then fell at Upper Valley 10-4 after only getting 4 runs off 5 hits. So kind of tough night for them, trying to get that winning streak going, and the bats kind of dropped. And then, that next day up in Sanford, game 1 went really well. The team played really well offensively and defensively behind the pitcher, and came away with an 8-3 win. And then in game 2, the team fell to Sanford 4-3. So really was struggling to get some wins strung together, Gus.
Yeah, you talk about Aaron Groller actually pitched a complete game in that first game of the doubleheader, but then the Navs lost 4-3 after having the lead early. It was an unfortunate loss in the second game of the doubleheader, but then nonetheless, they lost to Keene on Monday 8-3 before beating Winnipesaukee at home last night 11-0 on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the Navs did play, but the rain in New England decided to strike once again, and some lightning in the area caused the game to get suspended. It will get made up on Sunday as part of a doubleheader. So that should be an interesting doubleheader to finish out the season, as the Navigators will be traveling to Keene tonight. Actually, we're recording this on Thursday, so by the time this podcast comes out, the Navigators will be hosting the Upper Valley Nighthawks on Friday. It's part of Firework Friday, and we'll get more into that as we get into the rest of the podcast.
You mentioned that 12 game and 11-day stretch for the Navs. A lot of baseball being played for them. And so far, since that stretch started, we've had some great performers for the Navs. As you mentioned, Aaron Groller had that complete game up in Sanford. We also had the debut from Graham Jeffries out of Salve Regina, a D3 guy. He only pitched those 2 innings. 2 1/3 innings before the rain stopped it. But he was dominant in his first start. Matthias Haas last night. Logan Bravo's been hot at the plate. So all around some great performances. And then Luke Marshall's start last night was just what the Navigators needed. He went 6 innings, giving us 11 strikeouts and gave up no runs in combined shutout effort. So, we've been getting it done pitching, defensively, offensively. We just need to, at the end of the season, make sure the guys are motivated and get this done and push a couple more wins on the board.
Absolutely. That will be the key going forward, as the Navigators will look to host a playoff game in the first round. But for now, let's transition to that interview of Coach Hirsch. And it was a great interview of him. We talked about the Navigators. We talked about his high school days with Arlington and Burlington. He's a Middlesex guy, as you are, Nick. So you're very familiar with Dan, I'm sure, over the years. But for now, let's do it. Here is our interview with assistant coach Dan Hirsch. We now welcome a member of the Navs coaching staff to the Navs Nation podcast, assistant coach Dan Hirsch. Hirsch is in his second season with the Navs of head coach Bob Macaluso, and has been a major influence in the Navigator roster over the last 2 seasons. The Arlington, Massachusetts native is the current baseball coach at Burlington High School, in which he's held that title since 2015. He was also the Arlington head coach from 2001 to 2010, and in those 10 seasons, the Spy Founders qualified for the postseason every single year. Hirsch played football at American International College after having a successful high school career, but his main success continues to be coaching, being part of the Middlesex League for the entirety of his coaching career. As the Navigators are officially in the home stretch, Hirsch continues to relate to his players and support in any way he can with Macaluso and assistant coach Justin Kelly. So, Coach Hirsch, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Coach, great to have you on today. Just really excited to have you on and love having you around the park. And just, in my first year with the team, love interacting with you all these nights and, getting to know you a little better. And glad to know you're a local guy like me around the same area, Woburn, Burlington, Arlington connection, Middlesex League guy. But first of all, let's just talk about your, how you got into the job with the Navs. Obviously, you've been coaching for a while. Who asked you about that job, and what were your first thoughts when you heard about the opportunity with the team?
Well, actually, I heard from Derek January, the owner of the Navs, president, along with Jeff, and our relationship goes back a while. My years as a coach at Arlington. We hosted a Memorial Day tournament, and both of January's, Derek and Jeff, served as umpires that weekend. And we had a prior friendship. We had crossed paths through my brother Derek. Actually, is good friends with my brother Tim. I had met him over that time, which was back really a long time ago. But we had, kind of crossed paths here and there over our baseball travels, as you'd say. And he reached out to me last spring. It was the COVID spring, and he just, talked about the opportunity. And it's really interesting because for me, throughout through all my years, this really isn't something that I had my eye on. With coaching football and coaching baseball, my summers were pretty limited. But over the last few years, where it's strictly just baseball, the summer baseball season is, as you guys know, it's a grind. It's a long one. And just having to be the right place at the right time. And appreciated the opportunity. Really have to thank Derek and Jeff, along with Coach Mack. As much as Derek, presented the opportunity, it was Coach Mack who, had the conversation with and ultimately, hired me on as a member. And just really thankful for that, for all that I gained from spending time around those guys, especially Coach Mack. We actually go back to my AIC days. He was at Springfield. So when we talked on the phone, he actually had a memory of me. He knew who I was, and just kind of tells you what a small world it is. So that's really how it happened, and I think it's worked out pretty well. I certainly has on my end. Love it. Have absolutely just loved the opportunity and happy to be a part of it.
You kind of already touched on it, but when Coach Macaluso offered you the job, was it kind of like a no-brainer? You said, "Oh, I want to take this position and coach with the Navs for 2020 and beyond."
I didn't really know what I was getting into, to be honest with you. I mean, as a high school coach, I think the thing that I thought about was how this really wasn't much different than high school. These guys were just a few years further along in their careers. One of the pitchers for the Vermont team, Josh Becker, he's a kid I had in high school. Last night, Drew Metzdorf played second base for Winnipesaukee. I had him when he was in high school. So it was just trying to visualize, players that were just a little further along in their career. While I didn't really have any experience as a coach in that role, I could certainly reflect back on my time as a college athlete, and it was a no-brainer. I mean, when he remembered me, it was that was the thing. I'm just like, man, this is funny. He'd remembered me from my days at AIC, and that's actually a pretty intense rivalry, AIC and Springfield. So, I knew, if you remember somebody from that time, that's a real thing. So, that kind of fell into place. And again, I didn't really know what I was getting into, but when, the roster we had last year, some of the players on it, you guys know who they are. It was just a great experience, just a really great experience. When it comes down to it, it's baseball. It's one thing I think that brings us all, the common thread we all have. Doesn't matter what level, what group. That's what I've kind of realized through this. It's a great thing to be around. Baseball is the best.
with all of his expertise and, the years of experience all around the country, all different opportunities, different roles, like a guy like Coach Mack, what's it been like learning from him and being around him? He's been around the game for a long, long time. What do you take away from working with him?
Can't say enough about that part of it. His experience, coaching at UC Irvine in the College World Series, the other travels he's had through Pennsylvania. He and I have talked a lot about just kind of the path and how you get to the places you get to. And it's two things. It's learning something new every day. His demeanor with the players and his way about going about his business is just so consistent. Always has the positive message. It's always a teaching moment, no matter what. Doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does, there's always meaning behind it. That's something I clearly took from him. And I'll say this, the nice part too is, we share a lot of the same views, even, through coaching strategies and how you see things. And I certainly appreciate his, kind of bouncing things off of me when we talk about certain, strategies, techniques, situational play. It kind of reaffirms that, I feel good about, my own knowledge of it. So it kind of hits, two branches on the tree.
So talk about, the young coaches now in the Navigators, and Justin Kelly, who's an assistant coach as well as you. Do you give any advice to him and his coaching career as he kind of develops, his path or his success?
Absolutely. I mean, Justin's been a great addition. And again, I think his demeanor is really what I take, from him. It's great to be around guys that are really kind of trying to find their way and create their own path. He's got extensive experience in scouting in the major leagues, and did some work with the Minnesota Twins, and now coaching at UMass Boston. And the baseball talk is really easy, and we'll sit here at the game, and together he and I, chart pitches and kind of observe the pitches throughout the course of the game. And the conversations also drift into career and path, and how you get to where you get to, and different things you want to have in mind. And of course, he's a few years younger than I am, which I think also brings some good value to the conversations, because there's some experience I have there as being a head coach, and the different the different things you deal with as a coach outside of just baseball, the baseball strategy piece in terms of, organization, administration. And that's certainly something he picks up from Coach Mack as well. But it's great. I mean, anytime you're next to somebody and you kind of see things the same way, and you can offer some guidance to them and offer something, and then get something back from them as well. I think the key to a good coach, and anybody who's wants to move forward in this game, is to be open-minded and to be kind of willing to, adopt different ideas and different things. That's been fantastic. He does a really good job with our pitchers.
So transitioning a little bit to the high school coaching days for you, this year, this past MIAA season was one like almost any other, a shortened year, and there was a lot to tackle, a lot to manage. What was your message to the Burlington guys about how to tackle this past 2021 season? I know you were able to coach in 2020 with the Navs, so that probably gave you a little bit more perspective on, playing through the pandemic. But what was that like for this year, just, through the whole school year for those guys?
I think, like everybody else, really, we just had a true appreciation for being able to be out there. To be able to, I know the first game we played, I remember standing out on third base, coaching third, and just kind of taking it all in and just saying, wow, it's really great to be back out here. So there was a sense of appreciation that we had, and we really tried to dedicate our season, to the seniors from the year before who didn't have that opportunity. That was really one of the underlying themes that kind of carried us through the season. Had a very young team, had a very inexperienced team, excuse me. And so while there was a lot of growth there and a lot of work and a lot of developing that we needed to do in terms of the baseball, the underlying, just appreciation of being there was something that was really something we talked about, on a daily basis. Whenever we were feeling like things were kind of stacked against us a little bit, we would always think of that group that didn't have the opportunity that we're having right now. And our kids were great. I'll tell you, I really it was kind of reinvigorating to be back out there. It was a really difficult situation for really all sports and all teams, but especially those that lost that spring of 2020, because I don't think I can recall a more helpless feeling than back at that at that time. I had a very, very much a veteran team that had a lot of high hopes, and there were no answers. There was nothing to communicate. It was really, really, really kind of a helpless feeling. So, you feel for those guys, and some of them had come down, all of them actually had come down to see games during the year. But hey, you got to move on. I mean, I think we're all trying to learn lessons in life and different experiences, and that was certainly a unique one for really everybody in the world. So, to be able to be back out there last spring, I think that was the priority for us. Just appreciate what you have, and never take it for granted.
So when you left Arlington rather, and you went over to Burlington, obviously that must have been a little bit of a transition. Was it hard at all having to leave, a place where you did a lot of great things in Arlington to move over to Burlington?
Very much so. I've been doing this a long time, and I think that, to step away at the time when I did, I had been there for 10 years. I was also served as the football coach. I live in town. It was a big part of my life. At the same time, I have a family. I have my wife Kathy, my daughter Shannon, and Haley, who I wouldn't be anywhere without their support throughout all this. But they were entering into high school, my two girls, and just kind of felt like it was time to maybe step back and step away from that, and almost let them have their time. As it can be all consuming. Coaching the two sports at the time. It was the right time to do that. Just kind of caught my breath a little bit. And then when some time had passed, just kind of try to find a way to reinvent yourself a little bit. You really find out what you appreciate, what you love, what you think you're good at. And, then you try to find a way back. And, fortunately for me, at the right place at the right time. And when the Burlington opportunity, I kind of had my eye on it, I'll be honest. Burlington's a community that has, really a good baseball history. Jim Curtin was the longtime coach there. I think he's got the highest number of wins in high school history, maybe number 2 now. And you just knew it was a baseball community. It was just, again, the right place at the right time. And I'm really thankful for the opportunity they gave me, because I wouldn't be here right now doing what I'm doing if it weren't for that. So that was tough, but at the same time, I think it was a good thing as well. It certainly turned out that way.
Yeah, you've definitely worked in for this region of the state. You've worked in 2 of the most athletically inclined cities and towns. Definitely a lot of community support for the sports teams as well. What can you tell us about your support that you've been getting in Burlington so far, and what that community sense is like?
Well, I mean, the one difference was I wasn't a resident. Okay, so I was really there, in terms of a coach, just trying to understand, how the community kind of functioned, where the importance of baseball was beyond my own knowledge. And I remember going in, I really had a lot of respect for their programs, because they're kind of not a small place, but not a big place. Very loyal to each other. And again, yet at the same time, a lot of success. Around the time I had come in, the hockey team had won a couple of state championships. I was familiar with some of the people there for sure. And I kind of wanted to get in there and become a part of it. That takes some time. I think you really have to come in and just kind of take it all in. Look to piggyback on the successes of other programs. And in fact, that's what I did when I was in Arlington. When I took over in Arlington in 2000, we piggybacked on hockey's success in terms of how we structured the program, booster clubs, just the overall expectation. Same thing happened when I got into Burlington. I mean, I wasn't afraid to say, hey, these guys are doing this very well. How can we kind of, follow their success? And I think that we did that. And when the makeup of your team involves those 2 sport players, those hockey, baseball players, that makes it a little bit smoother as well. And those certainly aren't the only players you have, but even if they aren't, they're aware of the success of those other programs. And I think when you're coming in with that kind of approach, you're creating some unity as well, because I think that's really important too in a high school setting. Sean Hart does a great job. He's the athletic director at Burlington. I'll tell you, there's no prouder guy of Burlington High athletics. And, I wish we had Fenway Park as our field, right? But, there's different things. I think everybody wishes that. But in terms of our team successes and the team successes, love seeing an administrator like that who pushes the successes and really, in today's social media age, he's all over that. And I don't know, that's something I can appreciate, coaching as long as I have, when you have an athletic director that promotes that and wants you to promote it. That's a great thing. So, yeah.
One of the last questions I'll ask you here is, what is one of the main piece of advice that you give to the guys on the Navigators? You obviously have to, talk to them, whether it's the hitting, the fielding, the pitching, whatever it may be. What is the main piece of advice you give to guys on the Navigators and your high school guys as well, whether it's just about baseball or life in general? Obviously, these guys are in college and looking to move on, whether it's baseball or other things in life. So what's kind of the main pieces of advice that you give them?
Well, let's see. It's a great question. So my high school guys, I think that having them in the time of the lives that we have them, it's about overall their development into young adults. And, I've always believed that, if you're an athlete, and you're an accomplished athlete and, you want to compete at the highest level. So it's just about your commitment to self-improvement and, how important that is in whatever it is you decide to pursue. Trying to just establish that foundational kind of characteristic in yourself is going to last, is going to sustain itself, whether it's moving on to play at the college level, whether it's becoming a young adult, a young professional, maybe a husband someday, a father someday. It's just teaching, I think, about the responsibility and the accountability that just is involved with becoming an adult in the world today. I do that through baseball, and the relationships I have with them are, they're awesome. I'm really lucky and privileged to be able to be that person in their lives. And don't get me wrong, it's not always smooth, but they know that I care. I know that, and I have relationships with players. I think I saw a quote somewhere, something about being called coach. And I commented, to have somebody comes by, the coaches that I saw coach 10, 15 years ago and have them refer to me as coach. And there's no better feeling. That's a really cool thing. So really just their development into young adults. I mean, as far as the guys on the Navs, I think the major difference, which I really appreciate, is just their own self-motivation. These guys are so fired up to succeed and do well. And I think that if there is a piece of advice I try to give them, whether it's a specific situation and just talking through it baseball wise, it's more so about trying not to press too much, trying to kind of settle in and relax, appreciate the experience. We have a pretty heavy roster of players, and some advice to some has been, don't think people think about you as you think they do. Guys can get into little streaks here and there, and they kind of let them kind of overcome them. And these guys just have been just tremendous in that regard. And I will say this, the way they welcomed me was something that I won't ever forget, really. I mean, I missed the first week or so of the season, and all of them, to see their intensity, their commitment, and yet the respect they showed as well. And they're looking for guidance, not afraid to ask. It certainly wasn't a case of them thinking that they were too, big to say, hey, to a guy, what do you see here, coach? You get some advice here, how I can handle this situation. So it's really an extension of what I do with the high school guys, but you know what? They're obviously in a different place, these guys. And, but again, I'll say it before, it's all baseball, man. It's baseball. It's the one thing that brings us all back to the same place. So.
All right, Coach, with 4 calendar days left in the season, today being Thursday, we're recording this. You're going up to Keene tonight. 5 games left, including that makeup against Sanford. How excited are you and the guys for the end of the season and the push into the playoffs? It's a tight race in the standings right now, and every game matters. So what's that kind of atmosphere like around the clubhouse and around the dugout?
Well, I'll tell you, I think when we get to the park every day, you can kind of feel the energy in the whole group. We had a tough night the other night out at Keene, yet might not have been feeling so great about that. But yeah, we got to the park on Wednesday to play Sanford, and you could tell the energy and the juice in the group. Obviously, great to be home. You guys bring a lot of that energy that helps us. The staff with the Navs that put on their game day promotions. It's a significant thing we notice. We got rained out Wednesday after a couple innings, and then we come back on Thursday. I think people couldn't wait to get to the park. Today we go on the road, And, we're playing at a place that's been tough to play for us. So I feel like, we're seeing it as a challenge. And then you take into consideration where we are in the standings, the record, how much time is left. It's great to have these kind of meaningful games at the end. And I think for our team, to get that monkey off our back of winning up at Keene, which is one of the top teams in the league, I think that's a challenge that we're all kind of excited about, really excited about. And then, to come home Friday night, kind of finish out the weekend with a lot at stake. The energy, you can feel the energy for sure. It's good stuff.
Well, Coach Hirsch, thank you so much for joining us on the Navs Nation podcast. We really appreciate the time, and it's been great to have you and great to have some coaches' perspective as we near the end of the 2021 season. So thanks, Coach.
Hey, and listen, shout out to all you guys, man. I've been really happy to get to know all of you, and Gus, love seeing you come in the bus, man. I told you the day starts when you show up, Gus. When I see you, man, it's time to go. And with Josh, you guys in the bus on the ride home, that's some interesting conversation to listen to. I'll say that, but I really appreciated it. Good to see all you guys. Thanks for everything that you do, and go Navs.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
We appreciate you, Coach. Thank you.
All right, guys, take care. Thanks.
Well, that was a great interview with Coach Hirsch. He provided a lot of local insight and some advice that he gives to some of his younger players. And it's great to get a coach's perspective. We've had a lot of players on the podcast this year, but to have a coach's perspective is always a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it was great to have him on. And then he mentioned tonight, going up to Keene, the guys are juiced up for that. So tonight, Thursdays when we're recording, then the team will be up in Keene, New Hampshire for a big game against the Swamp Bats. And then Friday, as we mentioned earlier, will be the return of Fireworks Friday at Fraser Field. Looking very much forward to that. Free admission for all fans to that game. Looking to have a packed house and help the Navigators to a win over Upper Valley.
Yeah, it should be a great one. Fireworks Friday is always a great tradition that we're so happy to have back this year for the last Friday home game of the season, of the regular season. So should be a great one against the Upper Valley Nighthawks, and that'll be a big game for both teams too, as we are in the end of the season. So that'll be on Friday. Again, free admission for that game. So hope to see everyone there. And if you're not there, hopefully to see you on the broadcast on the NECBL network, which has been a blast this year. So the Navigators will also be heading to Vermont on Saturday. That is going to be a huge game potentially, depending on the standings shake up over the next couple of days. Then they'll host Sanford to close out the regular season as part of that doubleheader. So it should be some great baseball.
Yeah, looking forward to that, the last couple of days of the year. The Sanford doubleheader, I'm looking to see how we close out that game in which it was suspended the other night, 2-0 with a 2-0 lead for the Navigators. So hoping that can really help us out the next, couple games. Sorry, someone was just FaceTiming me. Thought it was going to come up. Okay, hold on. What did I say to start that last part? I'm looking forward to Sunday against the Sanford.
Yeah, closing out the 2-0 lead.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this Sunday. That doubleheader. We'll be able to finish that suspended game. They had a 2-0 lead going into the top of the third inning. So when that game was suspended, would be nice to finish that one up and grab another win and close out the regular season on Sunday and, hopefully host on Tuesday, the 3rd.
Should be a lot of fun, and make sure to stay on top of it with the socials. We'll obviously be on Twitter at NS Navigators and Instagram as well. So make sure to stay tuned as we are closing out the rest of the season. We'll have another episode of the Navs Nation podcast next week. It will come out before the playoffs, so we're very excited about that. But for now, that is going to do it for episode 11. For Nick Paranek, I am Gus Spalo saying so long. Thank you for tuning in to episode 11 of the Navs Nation podcast. We'll see you next week as we get ready for the playoffs.